All right, welcome to this fourth critical conversation. I'm Matt Lakenbach, Executive Director of the Middle East Peace Civic Forum, and I'm joined today by Walid Seyam. He's a Palestinian activist and peacemaker and human being. And we're here today to have a conversation about what's next for Israel and Palestine and finding a way to peace. And of course, there's a lot of garbage we have to get through to get there. And Peter Van Gelderen is our facilitator today. Peter joins us from Southbury, Connecticut. And I am in Connecticut as well, in West Hartford. So we're just up the road. And Walid, you're in Johannesburg, correct?
That's true.
And with the flu as well. So I I thank you and acknowledge you for, I don't know what it took. I know it took a lot to be here on camera and engaged in this conversation. And I'm glad that you're here. We have a lot of important stuff to discuss.
Thank you. Yes, I agree.
Thank you. Thank you. And welcome to Majid and Jess, who are on our board and advisory board. Peter, would you like to set the stage as our facilitator today?
Yeah, I'd love to actually, and I'm feeling, a real calling to just open the floor to a clearing first. We can really clear what's in our space, right? So there's so much going on, and everybody's coming from a lot like being worn down over these 10 months, really getting the emotional impact and or resignation. So I think let's open it up to like sharing what's in our space without too much filtering, so we know the real emotions. That's what I see as a place. So we'll start with Walid. He was beginning to share what's really going on for him, and we're very open to that. And then we'll switch to Matt, and then we might hear also a small group today. We might open it up a little bit to clear, and then we're going to pick a topic today, mainly around our theory of change and get alignment with Walid, who's our new board member. We're so grateful and excited to have him on the board, and it's very meaningful for us as an organization to have an open forum for everybody and not be picking sides or having one point of view. So this is really a healthy environment for peacemaking, and like Matt said, humans, we're all connected as humanity, and we're all peacemakers here. So we get to contribute to the conversation. So Walid, why don't you go there? Let's go there with what you've been experiencing recently and over the last 10 months, and yeah, I won't put words in your mouth. What's going on over there?
Thank you. Thank you for this introduction, and thank you for this opportunity to speak and express my mind, because frankly, I don't think it's an exaggeration when I say that my mind is about to be lost. And I don't think I am the only one, because after 10 months, least to be said is I'm definitely drained out. And um, I'm trying to deny that I am indeed burnt out, because if I surrender to that, I will just um, park the bus, and there's no time. There's no time, because people in Gaza, people in the West Bank, they don't have that privilege. Especially the people in Gaza, they don't have that privilege. People in Gaza are running between one refuge to another, and they're trapped in a box. There is nowhere to go, and every inch of that box is being targeted, bombarded, and basically being a living hell. Uh, so no matter what I say, no matter how frustrated I might sound, I will sound and I will appear as if I'm a spoiled brat, because it's nothing compared to what's going on the ground. Right, right now I have the flu, and I say that I'm struggling, or I had a long day, and I say that I'm tired. But actually, I wish all the Palestinian people at this moment would have the flu and have a long day, but at the same time have this roof, have this warmth, have this food, have this water. So I would exchange that in a heartbeat. 10 months. I'm fighting to be numb. It's a real challenge. And it's hard to find a balance, because let's say I want to practice my activism, or have an impact, or raise my voice. That's happening through or via social media. Okay, whenever I open social media, I always see my feed, either someone that I know who has passed away, or a friend, or that I know who has a family, or someone that he knows who passed away. We all share the same pain, and it's been 10 months, and it's ridiculous how we are still able to keep going forward. I don't want to say that I'm transferring into a zombie by trying to eliminate my feelings, because if I surrender to it, either I'll be angry, too angry, that it will affect my strategic point of view, which is peace activism, or it will let me, or it will spiral me into depression where I can't do anything. So maintaining that balance is extremely difficult, Peter. That's on the personal level. And I'm sure this struggle is not something that I claim for my own. I'm sure other people feel it as well. Um, and at the same time, when I see Netanyahu's speech in the Congress, and when I see how he was celebrated, uh, uh, it drives me crazy. And when I see Americans burning the American flag in protesting, or in protest against his speech in the Congress, it also drives me crazy. Many things that are happening that don't make any sense. And it's all coming from the evil that is happening in Gaza right now, as we speak. Because our inability to stop it is making anything else or everything else appear to be irrational, at least in my view, in my eyes. So we want to talk change. That's great. That's wonderful. Can't wait for change to happen. And I will do my very best to make that change happen. And I don't care what that change is. Can you see how flexible I am? I don't care what that change is, but let that change happen. So if the change is going to happen via Netanyahu spreading the lies and the haspara and that rhetoric that is so one-sided and blinded, and for Trump to win the elections, for the Israeli agenda or strategy to be applied, then let it be. Let it be, but end the killing, end the bloodshed. My people are dying, and I don't know what to do. Maybe some of my people will criticize me right now for being here, talking with you. Maybe they have a point, but guess what? Guess what? It doesn't matter who's in my way, because occupation is already on my way. So I'm that desperate to try anything. Some people resort to violence. Are they justified? Yes, indeed. Are they justified? Yes, indeed. But does that mean violence is the right answer? So, in my view, no. On the contrary, no military solution from the Israeli side. will end, will put an end to the Palestinian quest for self-determination, and no Palestinian violence, resistance, terrorism, call it whatever you call it. Violence remains violence, regardless, legitimate or not. Doesn't matter who wears the uniform or what color. Violence is violence. Doesn't matter who practices it. So, and like, I'm trying to be hopeful. I'm trying to be optimistic. I'm trying to cling on something positive. And sometimes I get to feel that I have mental illness. I'm bipolar, or I have a borderline personality or whatever, because the mood swings. Being positive, hopeful, like because also as an activist, because right now, let's say all of us are activists. I'd like to think that we are. And all of you are feeling down because of what's going on. So somehow I feel it's my responsibility to pull you up with me. And now that you're up, I'm down. So I don't know how to describe this, Peter, but all I can say is that it's impossible to look forward and stay focused when the blood is making the earth drunk. I'm complete.
Wow. Well said. It's so hard to stay positive when the blood is making the earth drunk. Wow. I'm going to quote you on that. So yeah, thank you, Walid. I really got, you're feeling, you're really feeling, you're not knowing what to feel because your mood swings are so big, and you're feeling responsible, even, some guilt that you're in a good and better position than your family and friends in Gaza. You wish you, even though you have a cold and you're tired, you wish they could have it so good. I really got that your compassion, and that any change is good change at this point, as long as it stops the bloodshed. And as a peacemaker, you're feeling the accountability to lift us up, but then you're down. So I just wanted to really get those emotions that you're experiencing, and not add anything. That's a lot. That's a lot. And so, as a facilitator, there's an opportunity for everybody to clear a little bit, what's in their space. I think I'm just going to kind of dance here with the format, and then we'll open it up to some dialogue with Matt and Walid. Today's call was structured around a theory of change and what Middle East Peace Civic Forum's been developing over the last 2 years or so, and actually over 20 years, as Matt launched this in his graduate studies and kicked this project off. So, but let's just check in with everybody. Maybe just a short check-in. What's been going on with you, and how you're feeling, and what's the temperature on your side, dealing with the recent speech yesterday and the emotions, stuff like that. So maybe Majid, can we hear from you? What's been going on with you, so we can kind of get related with everybody?
Yes. Greetings, everyone. And Walid, my heart goes out to you. I can relate to a certain extent, and maybe not exactly, but I was born in the city of Mosul, Iraq, and Mosul was invaded by ISIS. I lost family members to ISIS. There was bombing. There was destruction. They took our home for 3 years, invaded our own home and looted it. So I was not there, but I have 55 first cousins with their family and children, and lived through that and worked to rescue many of them to get them to safety. So similar, but not quite the same. So I hear you. I've been as most of you know, I'm chair of the board of the Dialogue Institute. We have 20 young people from the Middle East and Southeast Asia with us. And I've had, Jess has been, we've been blessed with her coming to some of our training sessions and also giving them some training. So we've been happy to have them here and working with them. It's work that's very much related to helping young leaders learn how to be change agents and agents for peace. So it's work we care deeply about. I did not hear Netanyahu's speech to Congress. I heard clips of it, but it is very upsetting to me and many of my allies to see him actually be given the platform. He's not someone, in my own opinion, that is serving Israel and the region well, and so many of my friends and allies in Israel are also very upset by hearing the words that he shares. On the other hand, domestically, politically here in the United States, I live in Pennsylvania. Our governor, Josh Shapiro, is among the 6 or 7 people that the Vice President Harris is considering as to be her vice presidential candidate. So I've been getting a lot of calls about him. I've reached out, to him as well. We'll see how that plays out. So I'll stop there.
Thanks, Majid. I appreciate it. I just wanted to kind of check in, but really I want to check in with Matt first. This is the focus of the call today is a dialogue, but we're going to open it up maybe later. So Matt, would you like to respond to Walid?
Yeah, I would like to respond to Walid and also look and see if there's anything else to clear beyond that. And thank you, Majid, for being here and with us. And you're someone who's a real inspiration going back decades in terms of your commitment to interfaith and just the human connection. So thank you for being part of our team here. And to Walid, so you said a lot of good stuff. First of all, I just want to say how poetic your speech is, and inspiring. Well, just to speak about the experience here, I mean, I'm in the same position, I think, as you are, Walid, of experiencing being privileged, in the United States, in a fairly liberal place. It's not the same as being over there. And you spoke about the experience in Gaza and how many innocent people are dying there and just the loss of life all around. It's truly tragic. And I think we need to really pause and ground ourselves in just the human costs. Whatever someone's political beliefs or theories of appropriate conduct in warfare, when they lose a child, they suffer, and that's painful. And you talked about, violence is justified. Let's look at what it's a word. We justify things all the time. And what's justifiable to one person is not justifiable to another person. When someone dies in the family for a cause, we want to believe that that death was honorable and that it meant something, and that that person died for a good reason, because it's painful that they're gone. So whatever one's belief system, whether we hate it or love it, that human experience is still part of the experience. And I mean, I think we have to acknowledge what happened in Gaza, and we also have to look at the experience of October 7th, which was a truly horrible day in the millennia of Jewish experience. But I think, we need to be honest with ourselves. It was also a wake-up call. And as painful and difficult as it is to find a way for Israelis and Palestinians, Jews and Muslims, really everyone with a stake in the region, to find a way to come together and figure it out. Now, I took from some of your comments this concern about being seen as, we're just here as the optimist and yay, rah, let's talk about peace and how beautiful it's going to be, and gloss over all of the terrible stuff that's going on. That's not what this is about. We think that it's important to deal with the garbage and to discuss it. And there's a lot of, I think, really valid issues that each side has with the other, if we're going to talk about sides, which really it's more complicated than that. But for simplicity's sake, there's grievances that people have that need to be aired and addressed deeply and effectively. So I do acknowledge your commitment to action and to steps on the ground and to making a difference, passionately and as much as we can right now. I think we also get to look at what's going to be the most effective action to really change the needle, and what can we do as a group of individuals that's within our capability. And if there are resources that we need, we can go out and get those resources. So I'm excited to be on a team with you at the Middle East Peace Civic Forum, and to have the opportunity to create. We don't overstep things. If there's something of a concern, we get to put it on the table and work it through. As Peter mentioned, we have a concept of alignment. That means we come to a common understanding and commitment. And if we commit to taking action, the whole team is 100% behind it and personally taking ownership of that action. So that's a powerful standard. There's the saying, if you want to go far, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with a team. And we do want to go far. We want to see real, genuine reconciliation, not just some, fake keeping the peace that's going to hold oppression into place. We're talking about real dealing with the issues as long as it takes, and to have that commitment to go forward and to talk about the issues and to find some good common ground. Because we are one family. We're the Abrahamic family, and we're even the family of Adam, the human family. So I think first and foremost, it can be helpful to really ground ourselves there, and just in our appreciation and respect for each other as human beings, and our honoring of one another as people, because that's what's at stake here. And the good news is, we do get to look at it from a kind of an optimistic vantage point. I think it's like two sides of a coin. We deal with the garbage, and then we also get to deal with the vision. What's the vision of coexistence? What's worth actually giving up the fighting such that we could have something pleasing, some kind of way to live and exist that's good? So we get to look at that. Sometimes it makes sense to kind of deal with the garbage first because it's on our minds and it's hard to think clearly as long as it's there. And this is a very long-running and complicated conflict. So there's a lot to talk about. And we have an hour and a half, so we don't have to handle it all today. That's the good news. But it is urgent. So.
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, so to go from here, I mean, I'd like to hear from everybody because it's a small group today, but just like a check-in where you are, emotionally, so we can kind of align with Walid. I think we want to, what's happening is he's sharing his heart and what's going on that he can't even put words to. So I think that's a place to start. But yeah, so maybe Jess, you're experiencing this in your own unique way, being married recently becoming Jewish and being a person of interfaith and working with Majid and what's going on with you?
Yeah, exactly. I'm pretty much in the same boat as Walid and Matt. I definitely feel a sense of resignation, at times, a sense of hopelessness, and really just frustration and disappointment with our leaders overall. That's really where I really want to see some progress there. And I have it that there are many other activists among us, who want to step up, who want to be involved and want something to happen to move the needle towards progress. Like Walid is saying, we're sitting here, we're comfortable. We have the resources we need to be on our computers, to have Wi-Fi, to have internet, to have water and food. And it's so painful to just to I guess allow myself to be comfortable when I know so many people are suffering, both sides. And I'm also experiencing what Walid has described as getting backlash from the people on our side. It's some people that I'm interacting with are saying like, well, if you're talking to them, then you're supporting them. And it's not the case. I'm talking because I want to find solutions. I want the suffering to stop overall. And it's really a unique experience I'm having also because we're getting ready to sell our childhood home, and I'm emptying closets and going through old pictures, and it's like reliving childhood all over again. So it's an emotional roller coaster. And I just feel grateful that I have that opportunity to be able to be in a place where I have the time to move. I know where I'm moving to, and I'm taking my resources with me. And this isn't something people in Gaza have. It's a limited window that they have to manage, like Walid, bouncing from camp to camp to camp. And it's painful. It's hard for me to focus in work, in business, in what I need to do in my personal life, getting notifications. And then, like you said, I'm married to an Israeli man, and we were in Israel when the war started. So I do have a perception of experiencing war and waiting for a rocket to come through the roof. And it's just so painful because on some level I can understand it, and other levels I can't. And overall, it's a matter of, the decisions we make today define tomorrow. And what are we going to decide about today? What are we going to decide with each other? What are we going to decide amongst ourselves personally? Walid shared about the internal depression and conflict and fight that happens. And I'm experiencing that like completely. And I feel torn both ways, saying, okay, well, yes, I'm loyal to the Israeli cause, and I'm also loyal to the people in Gaza because, like Matt was saying, we're all one human family, and that's the objective that I'm looking at. And sometimes I just don't know how to get there, and sometimes I can't clear the fog. And then what Majid was sharing also about this student program we had through the Dialogue Institute in Philadelphia. And I got to experience what some of those students were sharing also about how they also have trouble talking about it. They get criticism from their peers. Talking to anybody from either side means you're supporting them and you're supporting the rhetoric. And they're kind of running into some tough positions where they have to defend their opinion, they have to defend their homeland, they have to defend their identity. And this is really something I want to see progress in for all of us. And especially being a convert to Judaism, now joining the tribe, so to speak. It's something I had to understand about my own identity and what I was joining. So really, like, these conversations are just incredibly enriching for me. they're enriching, I believe, for the people in our lives to see, to hear, to know that there is access for conversation, and we're here and we're ready to do it. And I'm going to leave it at that.
Awesome. Thank you, Jess.
Yeah.
Really, you can start to see the parallels of emotional experience that we're all having, and also your unique perspective. Anything else for you, Jess?
No, that's it. I'm at the same point. I'm like,
Yeah.
sometimes I'm at a loss of words. So
Hi.
I'm just here. I'm just dancing in the conversation with you guys right now.
That's what I'm experiencing too. That's what I feels wanted right now. It's just a little opening and clearing and conversation. So so I want to open up to Larry, who's also on the ground, and it comes from his perspective. Larry, what would you like to clear, or what's in your space for the group?
First of all, I'm not sure what to say. I think as far as this group goes, I'm the only person who's getting shot at now for the last 10 months. And that should give me a little bit of a different perspective, but I think it doesn't. And I'm wondering if that's because I'm stupid or because I'm annealed to the issue. I don't know. I don't feel shot at. Even though just this afternoon, there were unidentified aircrafts in 10 miles from my house, falling out of the sky and getting shot out of the sky. I feel very not in the middle of a war. My grandkid leaves the house every morning and goes to his preschool and then comes home in the afternoon. And only 3 or 4 times in the last couple of months during the day has he had to go into the bomb shelter at his daycare center. So it's kind of, I go to the supermarket, etc. That's one thing. The second thing is I'm thankful to each and every one of you. 2,000 years ago, Rabbi Akiva said, and it's quoted, "From all of my students, I have learned." And also in the Ethics of the Fathers, written about 2,000 years ago, it's written, who's smart? And I don't claim to be smart, maybe getting there. Who is smart? The one who learns from every man, every person. Sorry, Jess. From every person. And each and every one of you, I can say thank you to you for teaching me something. Next, I think words are important. And every time I hear any of us say the two sides, the other side, the whatever side, I come back to Reverend Rodney, who said we're using that term incorrectly. The sides aren't the Palestinians and the Israelis. The sides are those who want peace and those who don't want peace. Next, there was a Chutes and Ladders board game picture going around from Gaza. And part of it was kill the Jews here, kill the Jews there, kill the Jews, go forward 3 steps, let the Jews get something, go back 3 steps, etc. And I was horrified. Look at those terrible Palestinians. What are they teaching their children? And then Rafa sent pictures of Jewish kids, Israeli kids in summer camps being taught how to pick up an M16 and fire it. hey, it's two sides. But what are the two sides? It's the ones who want peace and educate toward peace, and the ones who want war and educate toward war. Every time my request of you, each and every one of you, is every time you say the sides, you think carefully about it and figure out a way to rephrase it.
Mm.
Words are important. I am super saddened to tears multiple times a day about what's happening in Gaza, in the whole strip. It's awful, horrific, horrendous. I have a very formal Jewish education, and I certainly was not raised to do that.
Mm.
But I was also raised to defend my family, my state. There's an awful dichotomy, a clash of concepts, and it's awful. My heart goes out. Close to 40,000 people have lost their lives. More than anything else, I'm confused. History is not going to help us, apparently. He's wrong, he's wrong, he's wrong, I'm wrong, you're wrong. You've done shit, I've done shit, he's done shit, she's done shit. Somehow, we have to figure out moving forward. We have to figure out moving forward. And I think this group has some ideas on how to move forward. I am not complete, but I'm going to stop here.
Thanks, Larry. Good. Well, this is a great exercise to, clear together as a group, get related, see where everybody's at. It's a listening for what's in our space, and a place to get clear. Walid, I just wanted to go back to you one more time. Is there anything else after hearing everyone that you'd like to clear, or did something show up for you? And I just wanted to go back to you real quick, and then we'll go back.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Peter. Larry, man, just thank you for being you. That's all I can tell you. And I'm in no position whatsoever to tell you what to think, how to think. I'm as confused as you are. So there's that. And thank you so much for reminding me that Israelis, at least some of them, because honestly, I almost forgot that, can actually see Palestinians eye to eye, toe to toe in equality. So that's a sigh of relief. And yes, that will definitely give me a boost, a positive one, to, okay, get out of my misery and try to think, how can I make use of this? How can we, both of us, keep pushing forward? Matt, garbage. Let's take out the garbage. I got my shovel right here, and I'm sure yours is right next to you. But what's garbage? Because someone's like, my trash could be your treasure. Your treasure could be like my trash. So who are we, and how are we going to define what's trash? Going back to Larry, words, trigger words. Relate this with that. So, but at the same time, to be impartial and objective, you have to call a spade a spade. You have to call the ace of spades an ace of spades. There is no running around it, or there's no zigzagging around it at all. So, and at the same time, that's where the demon is in bed with the details. So the idea again, Matt, is to lay out that common ground, the humane one, because we're so deep in our details as Israelis and Palestinians to a point that we have naturally and automatically demonized each other by only focusing on ourselves and claiming the higher moral ground, the ultimate victimhood, etc., etc. That was a competition, and regardless who's winning it, regardless who are we cheering for, the red corner or the blue corner, it doesn't matter who's inside. The ring is the ring, and that's the problem, because we're stuck in a paradigm where its four corners are portrayed as a ring for us to keep on fighting. So if we change those corners by trying to spread out the common ground that Matt is trying, and that we all are trying to do by humanizing the other, by humanizing ourselves. I have to humanize myself before I'm able to humanize the other. And I think that's a big issue inside Israel and Palestine right now, in the West Bank, in Gaza, in Israel. We dehumanize each other. Ourselves, I'm sorry, before we dehumanize the one that we claim or make him an enemy. So, and I think that is done by idealizing death. Both societies do that, unfortunately. Yes, the Palestinian society have that under scope when it comes to the Israeli criticism of the slogan, pay to slay. I really respect the man or the person who came up with that catchy tune or catchy term, or the Martyrs Fund. That's part of also a culture that I don't want to say idealizes death. That might be true, but it, and at the same time, I'm trying to be very careful here, Larry, with my wording, because I'm trying to be genuine and authentic with myself, and at the same time, I know I'm going to be triggering to my fellow Palestinians, so I'm trying to be very careful with the word I'm going to be choosing.
Take your time.
Let's say enable violence or enable death to happen, or turn a blind eye to it or a side. Same thing is done in Israel. The Lion of Judea, Amcha Israel. What's that? From my perspective, the way I see it, okay, at least from the surface, it's something similar, you know? So when I see people basically from the West telling me, oh, what this whole concept of martyrdom, and
Can
how
you
it's being
expand on that? Can you expand a little bit on how you see Israel glorifying martyrdom? Please expand.
I'm not an expert. I'm not an expert on the Israeli society. However, I observe. And throughout my observations, I can tell you the following. Again, the two terms that I mentioned earlier are pushing towards that direction of endorsing death for the cause. Not necessarily directly, but it's definitely in an indirect way. And I'm sure if I expand and explore and get more aware and informed about the Israeli society and in its interactions, I'm sure I'll find more.
Walid, can I react?
Absolutely, please.
I have a feeling that you are at least partially correct. And I'm trying to think about other societies where people die for a cause if they are held in a positive light or not. And while I haven't thought about it too much, I'm going to bet that it's a common group dynamic. I'm not sure. I think you and I can think about that some.
I think the most prominent example is the samurai.
Way different than either Palestinian culture or Jewish culture.
I
Way
understand, but
different,
in
I
the
think.
sense of
Right.
choosing to die for a cause.
Okay.
I think it's a very common, if you look, even in America, right, honoring your soldiers. And,
Yeah,
you
I
know,
think it's a very common cause, a very common
very common.
phenomena.
Well,
So
I wanted to, go ahead, keep going, Walid. This is a time for you
thank
to
you, Peter.
look for
Thank you,
what
Peter, for
else.
allowing
Anything
me to
more,
continue.
anything more. Yeah.
And thank you, Larry, for at least, listen, I might be I am mistaken, but I might be correct. And the other is correct and might be mistaken. So what I said, again, I'm mistaken and I might be correct. So thank you, Larry, for making me feel that I might be correct.
Dude, you and I have an excellent dialogue.
Thank you. I agree. I agree.
You're the poster child.
And until that is being seen, because it's easy to point at the Palestinians, oh, look at what you're doing, how you idealize that. But how about looking at the mirror for a second and just let it sink in? And oh, wait, maybe I am doing the same thing that by doing this and doing that. I'm not any better. But that's the thing. It's a competition. Who's better? Who's human? And the other is a monster. We are artists in that as Palestinians and Israelis. So until, again, that notion of equality, by like basically, okay, whatever I ask of you, I have to present it forward first in good faith. And whatever you want of me, present it forward in good faith. So I'd follow. So you'd follow in good faith each other's lead. That's how I know it. Thank you.
Thank you, Walid. I heard some amazing things from both of you right now. I just want to acknowledge a couple of things. I think Larry really got a deep distinction that's needs to stay at the core of this work in our group, which is it's not them and us or that side and this side, but it's the people, it's peacemakers and those that don't want peace. It's a powerful distinction. Again, we're looking for things we can put into our ethos and our theory of change and alignment as a group, why we're here and what we stand for. So I really want to put that in our work as a powerful distinction, what makes it this Middle East Peace Civic Forum very clear where we stand. We stand as peacemakers regardless of sides, and that makes us human and relatable. And also, Walid, I heard we dehumanize ourselves first. This was like an epiphany. Like, wow, if you really look at that, you do have to dehumanize yourself first to dehumanize others. And so that's a really powerful place to look as a distinction that we can start to integrate into our work, because that's that shadow work. We have to heal ourselves first to be human and be okay with being human before we can be peacemakers, right? There's some wounds and darkness there we dehumanize ourselves to existence. So I was very moved by those two things. And I really, for the record, we're going to put that into our work. So thank you. All right. So I'm going to open it up now in a new way, which is, I kind of like where it's going, which is continue to ask what else, anything else. We're going deeper and deeper, and I think we're uncovering some of the really good stuff when we do that. So, Matt, how about for you? Like, rather than a dialogue and debate, or let's go a little deeper and like, what anything else for you? Like, what are you hearing from the group that you feel you can like connect to or want to expand on?
Yeah, well, I mean, I did want to kind of speak to the experience amongst the Jewish community and the American Jewish community specifically. I've been engaged in interfaith relations with American Muslims, American Christians, Palestinian Muslims and Christians, and in many cases, many individuals have excellent relationships between and among, you know, in particular, Jews and Muslims. And really many warm relationships and a willingness to see progress made on this issue and to get along. And of course, those relationships have been tested. But then you also have a lot of people who are very cut off from really knowing people who are of a different faith for all sorts of different reasons. But you mentioned, Walid, that Netanyahu was speaking yesterday to the Congress in Washington, D.C. And while that was happening, there were protests outside. And at those protests, they burned the American flag, and they took down an American flag and raised a Palestinian flag on one of the monuments. And someone took red spray paint and wrote on a monument, "Hamas is coming." And the American Jewish community where I live has experienced certainly a very heightened anxiety and concern about their security situation. The American political scene, we won't go into that, but it's certainly troubling in certain ways. And just kind of experiencing post-October 7th life on edge. And of course, American Jews have very close connections with people in Israel, friends and family in many cases. And an attack on our people anywhere in the world is something that we experience very deeply. So, and I think it's hard to imagine the experience of a people that's only several million strong worldwide, on a relatively small piece of land that is their state, the state of Israel. And you know, we need to acknowledge that, like, as a Jewish person, you know, we're not the only people that is native to that land. And it's a land that is sacred to so many people. And whether Jewish, Muslim, Christian, it's the experience of sacred land, of being where our roots are, I think is a common experience that we think of it as kind of diametrically opposed. But if we take the concept of indigenousness and rootedness in homeland and family, we get to create something powerful together. And that's the whole idea behind bringing artists who are creators and visionaries into this conversation. And you know, it's interesting. It's kind of a yin and a yang between, do we talk about the vision and the positive place, what's the destination, or do we talk about, you know, the bad things, you know? And again, language, I think, Larry, that's a great reminder that we should be very precise in our language. You know, we come from cultures that don't always understand appropriate behavior in the same way. So what's acceptable amongst one group of people, maybe to another group of people, is not acceptable. And these are cultural differences that I think, for starters, should be understood. So, of course, there's so many angles to this, But you know, first of all, I just acknowledge you, Walid, for showing up at this conversation and coming to these conversations, and for your willingness to engage. And I think for all of us, it's a good point that, hey, we need to talk about some of this stuff that isn't working. Is that an appropriate phrase, Larry? It isn't working?
You're
You're
muted.
muted.
You're muted.
I think that's real clear. It isn't working.
There you go. That's a great languaging that we can use in our what's working, what's not working. It takes some of the charge out. Keep going, Matt.
Yeah. Well, I just appreciate you all being here today. And I mean, there's so many places. I'll turn it back to you, Peter.
So what I see, Matt, thank you. Would you like to go, Walid? Okay. So I'm gonna let me just preface something and then we'll go back to you, Walid. So I had a call with Matt today about this call and getting alignment around Middle East Peace Civic Forum's theory of change. So this is sort of the core distinction in our work that needs alignment. It sort of can bring us all together. And I heard a lot of the things today. So, and I'd like to open that up eventually to what people hear. Maybe Matt, also, if you could bring it up, I think it's on the website, or Larry.
Yeah,
I'd like to generate. Yeah.
Did you want to really, I mean, it's long, so I don't know that we want to generate the text. But I can speak to it, and of course, this is part of an ongoing discussion. But if I can
summarize it,
where we're at, right?
We'll go back to you, Walid, to stand by.
Yeah, so there are quite a few things that aren't working, in a whole bunch of different spheres, and it's critical that we have conversations to address those things. We get to take action, we get to call for action, we get to make requests of individuals or politicians, whomever. We get to grow our ranks and communicate with social media. It's really to be designed. We really get to design the specifics of it. But the vision is something that we hold. We could generate the vision. Why don't we do that? Would you like me to pull that up, Peter?
All right, let's generate the vision, maybe the theory of, I'd like bullet points on the theory of change eventually, but maybe we'll go around the horn again after the vision. But go ahead. That one's a little easier smaller, right?
Okay, just give me a minute.
While Matt is looking, and Matt, interrupt me as soon as you're ready, I want to respond again to something that Walid said, which was wonderful, that we have to move from thinking and feeling to action. And I want to combine that with who the sides are. And the sides aren't me against Walid, it's Walid and Larry against the assholes who don't want peace. You in your society and me in my society. I think that's the core. I don't want to change Palestinian society. I have to change Israeli society. And you have to change Palestinian society.
Beautiful. Well, I have to say, these are all ingredients for a theory for change. I think we're creating it right now. Do you want me to generate this, or you want to generate it, Matt? Our vision. Why don't I generate
it?
What's that?
I said I'll generate it, but
all right, go ahead.
All right, okay. Our vision, we envision a reality of reconciliation, dignity, and peace within the Abrahamic family. In this vision, Israelis and Palestinians work together as allies and partners from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea. In our vision, the people of the land live in mutual respect with a shared commitment to the rights and responsibilities of all.
Okay, raise your hand if you have alignment. Do we have alignment? We're aligned. Look at that. We're all aligned. Awesome. Awesome. That's great. That's I like this clapping here. All right. Well, I'm going to go back to Walid. I think Walid wants to respond a little bit. And then also, I think we could go around the horn with what people are hearing and if things we can put into our work. Go ahead, Walid.
Yes, thank you, Peter. Wow, where I think I'll start in reverse from the last and then go back to and respond to Matt. In our vision, the people of the land live in mutual respect with a shared commitment to the rights and responsibilities of all. That's the problem, is that we keep demanding our rights without knowing our responsibilities. Because we should carry out our duties and responsibilities before we call and demand for our rights. I think that's how it should be. And for that to happen, we need to know what our responsibilities are. That's the macro. The micro, it can be applied in different discourses, I suppose. Larry, yes, you and me against them. Us, you and me against them, and us in this meeting, in this Zoom meeting against the extremists. And that's the problem. At the beginning of us meeting, we complained about how small in numbers we are. And after October 7th, we shrunk even more. But we're still here. And the people we lost will come back and hopefully will grow even more, because we need to keep on doing what we're doing and be loud, Larry. I don't know how, maybe by being irrational. Maybe we're being too rational. So we have to be irrational. I don't know how. Matt, Netanyahu's speech in the Congress, the action, that was awful. Burning the American flag, the reaction was also awful. And it's somehow a miniature of what Israel and Palestine is. The Israeli state practices policies and strategies that are oppressing Palestinians, and the Palestinian reaction is fire. So the action and the action and the vicious cycle. And it's even more absurd in my view, is that all of a sudden, I don't want to get too political and say left and right, but let's say the pro-Palestine camp in North America and in the States in particular is adopting and endorsing the political framework or presentation of the existing Palestinian factions. And it's mind-blowing to someone like me because of the following. They're adopting something, or they're practicing something that Palestinians have already let go since, if I'm not mistaken, if my memory does not betray me, the Second Intifada. 2005, when Dayton arrived, that was done. The status quo and the psyche and the mentality and the practices on the ground has changed Palestinian-wise. And even the political logic and practices of all Palestinian factions have changed, including Hamas, during the war. But still, that camp that supports the Palestinian cause in America is stuck 2, 3, maybe 4, if not 5 decades back, because somehow they're adopting the mentality of the 60s and the 70s. And for example, if you want to take out or bring and discuss the statement of Columbia University students. I think it was issued in March or April. And in the statement was this word of the national ثوابت, الثوابت الوطنية, or the national pillars, which is a political term that is overused by every Palestinian faction. Like the missing link for everybody outside is that Palestinians have never been this close to being blasphemous with every existing political representation within the Palestinian arena. You want to talk about the Palestinian factions that went to China for reconciliation talks? Other than the small pockets of support that get paid or are benefactors somehow of any way or the other from those factions, you won't find any real support for any existing political Palestinian faction. You can call me ludicrous, you can call me irrational, you can call me non-factual without evidence. That's true, I haven't done any survey. But I see my people and I know where they are right now. And I see how the Palestinian representation is deteriorating to a point that once Mahmoud Abbas is out of the picture, it's only gonna get darker. Somehow the Palestinian representation will be so diluted whereby we're recreating that vacuum in terms of Palestinian representation that surged or came to light after the 1930s and the Great Revolt of the 30s, 1936, where Husseini was exiled and was forced to engage with Hitler, and the rest of history is history. So again, people outside don't know how intertwined our lives are as Palestinians and Israelis. And people need to know. Because I believe in order to find a comprehensive political solution for the IP question, both the inside and the outside need to cooperate and need to exchange experience and coordination for them to be able to unlock this key or unlock this treasure that peace can provide for us in the Holy Land. Now, how to do so? I'm trying to contribute or do my role as a writer, because another important message I wanted to deliver. My people need to understand, the people who have burned that flag, and my people as well, or the people, but importantly, the people that have burned the American flag in front of the Congress, need to understand that someone like me talking right now is much more influential than any Hamas fighter with an AK-47 in a tunnel. And my weapon is my pen. And ideas never die. And that's the problem, is that Israel keeps using violence. Again, this is not the first time when I say Israel and the Israeli state and Hamas are two sides of the same coin that do not wish for a Palestinian national presence or a state to exist. And because Netanyahu was paying Hamas until when? Until October 6th or until October 7th for 59 p.m. Like, I think Hamas attacked and Netanyahu was still paying, guys. I think Hamas attacked on October 7th and they were still on the payroll of Netanyahu. Let that sink in. So, yeah. Again, my role and as a limited individual, I'm part of an institution called Unity is Strength. We have produced a peace Haggadah that was used in the previous Seder. We're going to produce a handbook to be distributed for universities, and we are already in the process of communicating and contacting universities. Some universities, we had positive responses, and I'm looking for any university in North America to cooperate with, to engage, to distribute that handbook. That's one. And also, we're trying to conduct workshops that's going to imitate the peace activism or the meetings that occur in the West Bank between Israelis and Palestinians. And another aspect will be how to use what has been taught throughout the handbook and practiced in face-to-face meetings via social media. So that triangle is this is basically the project. So that's the sooner the better, of course, of having this seeing the light. What else could be done? Many things could be done if we allow ourselves to do that. I guess that's all I wanted to say for now.
Thank you, Walid. I'll move to Majid in a second. I just want to say you're starting to set the tone for the last part of this conversation, which is action. How do we define action? I heard some powerful, what you're up to are projects. When you say project, unity is strength, and you have a handbook and you're getting it out through social media. These sounds like empowering acts of action, right? Acting out something, and I think you have a request of Middle East Peace Civic Forum to bring in action, into more action. So we're listening. So Majid, what's there for you? What's your question?
So I would like to respond to Walid and also compliment him for his kind of comprehensive description of the challenge of helping change my hearts and minds, and maybe explain that I share the frustration that it's very hard to change public opinions. And Walid, do you know Dr. Khalil Shakaki? He's a pollster, Palestinian.
His nephew Ibrahim taught me in Al-Quds University.
Okay. So I've met with Khalil Shakaki and I've sat down with him for hours, where he's described public opinion polls and how they've shifted over the last 40 years. As you mentioned, in 2005, something like 68% of Palestinians were supportive of the peace process and negotiations and a two-state solution and moving forward with a better future. In the most recent polls, that is down in the 30% range, but also support for Hamas, Islamic Jihad is 26% or something amongst all Palestinians. And it's about the same for Mahmoud Abbas. There's very little support or faith or confidence in the most of the leaders. And there's a very low level of hope given the Palestinian people caught between, kind of Israel in a hard place. I spent 2 weeks visiting with leaders and people such as Dr. Khalil Shakaki. I met with leaders in Jerusalem, Palestinian leaders. I went to Sheikh Jarrah and sat down for 3 hours with the leaders of Sheikh Jarrah. I went to the refugee camps in the West Bank outside of Ramallah. Same thing, sat down with leaders, talked to them and listened to them for hours, met with leaders in Ramallah. I've met with leaders in amongst Arab Israelis, trying to understand mindsets, understand perspectives, because we are talking about change. How do you change? How do you help people find a better path forward? For me, I needed to be on a listening journey to see if I can be helpful in that change. And this is nothing, we talk about our Jewish partners. For us to be helpful, and I heard it from you today, for us to be helpful within our own communities. When I say our own communities, I'm wearing a Palestinian hat, even though I'm not Palestinian. we need to be self-critical of our own people and where they're missing the mark. And you're doing that. So I compliment you on that. What I found amongst all of the groups I met with, I would say 90% of them, was they believed that if they're just patient and continue the resistance and the struggle, eventually the Jews will leave. And I found that amongst a majority of the Palestinians I met with, which I feel is misguided and not helpful thinking. There were some journalists I met with that I thought had a very good, realistic perspective of the facts on the ground. And to a person, they said, the problem with our Palestinian people is their leaders keep lying to them and the people keep believing the lies. So I will stop there, but wanted to share that was what I saw in my meetings amongst Palestinian communities.
Awesome. Thank you, Majid. I think you're bringing, oh, Walid, you want to respond to that?
Yes, I like to second that by sharing this, that one of the earliest, if not the first aha moment for me in my research, in me trying to understand what's going on, to understand who's right and who's wrong, trying to find a solution. In the Arabic version of the Palestine news agency, Wafa, they're talking about the Great Revolt and the circumstances and the situation and what led to it. And to me, I was born and raised and being fed the milk of how the Palestinians are victims. So all of a sudden, on the Palestine News Agency website in Arabic, them describing the Great Revolt of 1936, and they're bragging, I don't want to say bragging, they're proud of how it was the Palestinians who drew first blood. I never knew that Palestinians were capable of doing that. I thought we were always beaten in the corner. So I was like, oh, wait a minute. So I just wanted to confirm what Majid was saying by sharing this. And how the lies are being endorsed, how we're deceiving ourselves just to feed the ego of ourselves being righteous and right. No, we're humans. Hey, get down. Because sometimes we dehumanize each other. Let me add this to you, Larry. Never again may this slide go again, ever. The notion of never again, for example, have made the Israelis or the Jewish Israelis so rigid that they became somehow like Robocops or Terminators when it comes to anything related to that will instigate or come close to threatening or instigating their a level of fear inside them. That's dehumanizing. You're not human anymore. You became something else. So no, come back to Earth. Humanity is calling back for you, please. So, yes.
Great. Okay. All right. Well, so then Larry, then Matt.
Walid, I think that it's very human when someone is beaten and then in the future sees a stick coming toward them to recognize that they might be beaten again. And I don't think that is non-human. I think it's very human. And I think at this point in time, it's very Palestinian and very Israeli. Palestinians have been beaten and are legitimately afraid of being beaten again. Israelis have been beaten and are legitimately afraid of being beaten again. So I think there's a little bit of nuance here in that never again should be a motto for, it should yes be a motto for both Israelis and Palestinians. And you got to pay your electric bill.
Yeah, it goes off every, that's a bill goes off and on. Okay, thanks, Larry. Matt? And then I'm gonna just close after this. It's almost 1:30. I'm gonna do a quick round, but Matt, go ahead. You had your hand up. You're on mute.
That would help, certainly. Yeah, I wanted to kind of go back to the 10,000-foot view a little bit with regard to the question of the sides. Because at some point in my kind of initial inquiry of this conflict, what I realized is that you have people, like you have unique individuals, human beings, and they've had their own life experience, their own exposures, their own beliefs. A lot of people have experienced loss in many different ways, but that unique human experience is something that really is unique to every individual. And then we have families, we have villages, we have communities, we have tribes, we have religious affiliations and beliefs, we have our workplaces, we have all the different facets of life that ultimately make the whole entire situation extremely complex. So I think if we look at the what so and the question of are there really sides, we have to realize that that complexity is so significant. So I just wanted to kind of put that in to remember that when we're trying to understand what's the reality of a situation and what are the opinions, that it reflects that unique human experience across the board. And the other point is that words are important and words are also creative in nature. That through the way that we speak, through the things that we put into place, through the invitations that we make or requests, we can use language to create the reality that exists. And sometimes it begins just like this, in a conversation where ideas can flow back and forth. And as we discussed today, sometimes there's stuff that's, as we say, in the space that needs to be addressed and that needs to come out. But at some point, it's good to get to the creative conversation. So, this is one conversation, as we said at the beginning. It's not going to all get handled in one conversation, but part of this, and I'm going to speak as a Jew for a moment, and my experience of being a Jew and kind of how I understand that. I think, being small in number, there's maybe 6, 7, 8 million Jews in the world, fewer than the population of Karachi. And there's something about being Jewish that goes back to our roots out in the desert and communing with God and Sinai. It's like, here we are, this people with this relationship to God, to the land, to a history, and we get to be agents. Why do Jews not go out and see converts? You have 1 billion Muslims, you have 1 billion Christians. Jews are tiny. We don't see converts. It's because there are different ways of getting to the top of the pyramid. There's different ways to observe our faith and to experience, wisdom and spiritual insight. And you don't have to be Jewish. You could be any number of different streams. So in that light, it's a good thing that the Abrahamic family has grown so large and that so many people kind of take on these ideas that were formed thousands of years ago about basically being kind to one another and treating each other well and working to resolve our differences. So I think that's what's at stake. It's an opportunity, at least for me as a Jew, to express that creativeness in finding a positive way forward. And we have to acknowledge that Palestinians are part of that same family tree. I mean, even there we can have differences of the history and what's the truth and what it looks like. But at the end of the day, we can agree that or align, as we say, that we can embrace our brotherhood and sisterhood and come from that.
Thanks, Matt. Well, this is a good way to wrap up. We're at 1:30, and I think what I'd like to do is just go around and take that advice from Matt, which is, like being creative, right? So I think everyone got to express themselves. There was some powerful realizations, relatedness. If I was, if Walid was on camera right now, I'd say he was more alive, more lit up. And, I think he got something off his chest. There's a lot. He's holding so much on his chest that as a team, we get to hold space for each of us to just release all this heaviness that goes with this work. So that's who we are for each other, to be a clearing and a listening and non-judgmental, unconditional love. This is a very high energy we get to bring to this work as peacemakers. And that puts us in the category of peacemakers instead of one or the other. So I'm just going to go around and I want to hear your takeaway today. Like what really landed for you today? What was the big takeaway, so that we can start to create and put this into our work as milestones, or as like rubber on the road? We get to contribute to this work. So Larry, what's a big takeaway from today's conversation?
I'm going to say two. I'm going to say a takeaway from the conversation that was mentioned is that we have to each work on our own societies. That's number one. The second one is, in the 70s and 80s, I spent some time on the beach in Rafah. And I keep imagining a world where Israel does not spend so much money and so many hours of human productivity on weapons, and where Gazans don't have concrete stolen from buildings and put into tunnels. And I imagine what a wonderful world this could be. Much better than Singapore, I'm telling you guys. It would be, if we can figure this out, this is going to be the playground for Europe.
Wow, I moved. I have hope. Thank you for contributing to a possibility and a vision of that place being better than Singapore. I love that. I love that like vision. It's awesome. Jess, what's your takeaway today from this call?
Thank you, Peter. Basically going on what the theme kind of has been, and Larry brought it up right away, is words matter. Words matter. And the other point he brought up, like doing the work in our own camp. So taking on those hard conversations of, like we said, the two sides. I'm taking what you said fully, Larry. It's the sides who want peace and the ones who don't want peace, and that's my takeaway, and sharing, kind of being in a space to share that from that place versus who's who, labeling this country versus that country. But yeah, the people who want peace, people who don't, and how we're using the rhetoric, the dialogue to get to a place of peace, more or less.
Awesome. Walid, what was your big takeaway today?
That sometimes it's good to scream your lungs out, your lungs off, and get it out of your system so you could think clearer. And it's also important to make peace with yourself to be able to engage with others. So you'd be able to tolerate, endure. So eventually you'd be able to accept. And I think that will lead to reconciliation, those baby steps.
Beautiful. I feel that the space was very clearing and we a little healthier relationship with ourselves. I think we were all feeling, so I'll share, I was feeling, resigned, traumatic, and so this space energized me. I feel like put my peacemaking pants on, get back out there. So Matt, what's the big takeaway for you?
Yeah, yeah, and I just want to start by, Jess, you said the people who want peace versus those who don't. I think it's really the people who are willing to work for peace, that it takes something. We have to work for peace. And we can even be skeptical about it and unhappy and miserable about certain things that are happening. But we also, nobody's coming. There's nobody coming for us. I guess this is my big takeaway, is that it's up to us, that for all the good people and all the good efforts that are happening today, we're in the situation that we're in. So I think we need to really look at what is our capability and what is it that's needed in the situation. And we get to bring that. We get to be agents of transformation. And, as human beings, that's part of our privilege in a sense. We get to create in the physical universe. If you want to get philosophical, we have this earth. There's one earth, and in a trillion years, it'll be a puff of smoke. But for today, we get to live a good life and figure out how to work together. And it's not a small initiative. It's a big initiative. It's a big project. And we get to really start from where we are now and work it out, because it's not just for ourselves, but for our children and for our families and our human experience. There's an opportunity before us. So I'm honored to be working with you all on that quest.
A great place to end. And actually, that's my takeaway, is that I'm in the presence of profound human beings and peacemakers. And it's up to us. And so we're taking it on, whether effective or not. We're in it. We're in the game. We're on the court doing this work, and we're figuring it out. So I want to acknowledge everybody. Walid, thank you so much for joining us today and being on the board and sharing the tough stuff and getting it off your chest, and that, we're here for you as a support system. We are your support system for each other, and especially, for people like Larry and yourself who are on the ground, or close to the action, or family and friends right there. So I want to just say, acknowledge that you guys are very close to the action. And also, I want to acknowledge Matt for not facilitating, but for, bringing us together as Middle East Peace Civic Forum, and, initiating these critical conversations. That's a big deal. And we're here because we're enrolled in this work. Larry brought so much insight today and wisdom, and I acknowledge his leadership and his honesty, being really, really authentic, and sometimes even making fun of himself makes us all feel lighter and related and human, which I think is critical to peacemaking. So people with the best humor often can handle the most darkness. So thank you for your humor and authenticity. And Jess, thank you so much for being our feminine representative that we can balance out, and you're sharing today. And I just acknowledge you all for being peacemakers in the world and taking it on. And with that, go out and create an amazing day and week. And anything
One
else?
moment before you sign off for everybody, you deserve a round of applause from all of us for doing a wonderful job
Snaps
of
too.
helping us talk to each other.
Yay. Well, I'm honored. I love this work, and I think I love to listen to what's in people's hearts and get it out. And now we find our humanity. So bless you. Love you guys. Thank you so much for working together and creating something peaceful in the world. We are making an impact.
For sure.
Yeah. All right.
Amen.
Create an amazing week. Let's check in soon.
See you guys.
All right. Love you.